Now, welcome to another edition of Battle of the Heroes and Villains, where this time we'll be taking a look at the results of the poll for Cara Dune. We'll then be seeing where she ranks against all the other characters we've done thus far, before I then read and respond to some of your comments. But before any and all that, as usual, you can already head down to nominate and or vote for which character we do next by responding to my pinned comment below with a character name, or voting with a thumbs up if the one you'd like to see is already listed. Whatever single comment gets the most votes in the next 24 hours or so will be the winner and the character we do next. Alright, and now on to the results for Cara Dune, where we'll see that 15% of voters gave her an A, 53% then thought she was a B tier character, 25% went with a C, which left 4% to give her a D, and a final 3% to give her an F. And so when we do all the math here and consider A a score of 5 and F a score of 1, that means Cara Dune ends up with an average score of 3.73, which puts her into 43rd place overall. And before getting to your comments, let me once again just say thank you to everyone who votes, comments, and watches these videos or any of my videos. It is all greatly appreciated. Also a huge thank you to everyone who supports this channel over on Patreon. And so now let's get to those comments, starting as usual with the top rated comment, which this time came to us from Thomas Jepson, who said, B. She feels natural to the universe, and it was nice to see a character actually mourn the loss of Alderaan for more than one scene. Cough, Leia. Apart from that, we didn't really get to know her that well before the character was scrapped. I think she had a great potential, but we never got to a point that would truly have made her an iconic character. And yeah, it was really great to see a character that is actually deeply affected by the destruction of Alderaan, by the destruction of their home planet. Go figure. I mean, for the sake of the first movie, Leia does get over it quickly so that Luke and him losing a mentor can kind of take center stage, which, yes, when you stop and think about it, is kind of silly or ridiculous that Leia is comforting someone who lost a guy he met a couple days ago while she just had her planet destroyed. But anyway, yes, I do agree she does feel like a very natural Star Wars character. I think she fits in very well in the world or universe, whatever you'd like to call it. Despite the fact that, as many pointed out in their comments, she doesn't really have that much screen time in either the first or second season of The Mandalorian, that it felt like we were only starting to get to know the character. Which then brings us to this comment from Wayne Sire, who said, I'd rate her a strong B. She was definitely a strong and believable character. I thought she had a lot of potential to grow, especially with Rangers coming up as a vehicle for her. She didn't see a ton of development in Mandalorian, but there was more than enough to see she was definitely headed somewhere. Sadly, we'll never get to see that now. And though we can't know with 100% certainty since it was never actually confirmed, I do think it's a pretty safe assumption or a pretty safe bet to say that Cara Dune was going to be in and probably the main character of Rangers of the New Republic. I mean, the whole scene in The Mandalorian where she gets a badge and is essentially deputized as a ranger, I'm guessing, is pretty strong evidence of that, as is the show being put on indefinite hold after what happened with Gina Carano. And Kathleen Kennedy even recently saying that plans for it may be absorbed into coming seasons of The Mandalorian. All that says to me is that Gina Carano, or the character of Cara Dune, was going to be the focus of Rangers of the New Republic, and that plan has been completely scrapped. Now, does this mean we'll never see the character herself ever again? That we'll never see Cara Dune ever again? Well, I think the problem with that is if you recast the character, you are going to anger a lot of people who support Gina Carano. And if you don't recast her, if you just never do anything with her ever again, you can just pretend that was always the plan, despite the evidence to the contrary I was talking about before. But anyway, moving on now, let's get to this comment from Nate Wardrip, who said, I am a girl dad. Cara Dune is the kind of strong female character I want my daughter to look up to. Forget Captain Marvel or Rey Skywalker, give us more characters like Cara Dune. Then there's this one from Taticus Legion 78, who said, It's funny, she's a badass, a literal strong woman, and yet nobody on The Mandalorian made a big deal that she was a giant strong woman. Unlike some new other Disney Star Wars characters I can think of that were shoved in our face as strong female characters. Next up, this one from Sarah Baker, who said, Just like most of the Disney Star Wars characters, a ton of great potential, especially the strong female types, but unfortunately sidelined or terminated altogether. I love the character. My 10-year-old wants to be like Cara Dune, a strong woman who believes in and fights for good causes. I want to know more about her story, especially in Alderaan. Then we also have this one from Hannah Wager, who said, Cara Dune was a unique and interesting female character. She didn't need protection, but was willing to team up, had actual personal history with Alderaan that motivated and shaped her personality, and was generally a complete and total badass. I love her dialogue, her build, and her general character vibe was just so damn real. Such a bummer that she won't be in Rangers, though I am glad they did not recast her because nobody could play her like Gina. It's too bad that Hollywood has to constantly water down its quality by canceling actors who don't go along with their narrative. And though I don't really want to get into everything that went down with Gina Carano and Disney, people can have whatever opinion they want on that either way. We should learn to respect people's opinions and beliefs, which is kind of what the problem with her was. But anyway, I do think it was nice to see, I guess you could say, a more literal interpretation of a strong female character for a change. That we got an actual fighter and one who looked the part to play this character. So often I feel like what strong female characters are or turn into or turn out to be today is not only the perfect looking character in terms of beauty standards, but also one who can do everything with relative ease and doesn't struggle all too much or doesn't have this dark and foreboding history, which to me sends a strange message to young women telling them that strength is somehow being so great you never actually face adversity. That it's not struggling to get through hard times or challenges or, again, a dark, difficult past. By finding inner strength to overcome all that, it's just being naturally amazing, all the while looking amazing or beautiful or, again, fitting into certain beauty standards. Whereas Cara Dune clearly has some inner demons she struggles with because of what happened to her homeworld and what she did during and after the war. And though she's beautiful in her own way, you could argue she doesn't fit at that certain mold of beauty standards many of us hold women to. And she looks and feels more like a real character that encourages young women to just be themselves, that says to them that yes, you can be physically strong, you can look physically strong, and you don't, again, have to fit a certain sort of mold to be beholden to certain standards to be powerful and respected. You can be you. I don't know. Again, you can feel however you want about Gina Carano, but I thought the character of Cara Dune was a refreshing change of pace that sent a different type of message to young women. It's all kind of a shame that we almost certainly won't get any more from this character, and especially from Gina Carano playing the character, despite what some rumors out there might say about her possibly coming back. Again, I just don't see Lucasfilm and Disney ever really hiring her back, or does she even want to come back herself is another question. Alright, next up here we have a comment from Derek Lopez, who said, when she, Bo-Katan, and Fennec Shan teamed up to take down an army of stormtroopers, that's how you do girl power. Take notes, Marvel. Cara Dune gets a B from me. And I mean, that scene works so well because you don't really even think about it while it's happening. I didn't really think about it. It's never been about them being female characters, and the scene itself isn't about that. It doesn't feel like they're trying to frame it that way or a certain way, or to be some kind of statement, unlike the scene in Avengers Endgame, which is, I'm thinking, the one you're talking about here, where it's very much meant to be framed or seen as a girl power moment. It's very overt and in your face. And the kind of strange thing is, the more it's pushed or attention to it you draw, or the more you frame it that certain way, the more unnatural it ends up kind of feeling, or the more we think of it as something that is otherwise abnormal and needs to be highlighted and artificially created because it can't happen otherwise. Which isn't to say I don't think they should or could be pushing female characters more in Star Wars, Marvel, or whatever franchise it might be, or just in general. I just think the more subtle you try to make it, the more people will accept it without even realizing they're accepting it. Again, like in The Mandalorian, I didn't even think about it, but after the fact, I'm like, well, that was kind of cool to see female characters doing this. In other words, just create good characters. Sometimes they'll be female, sometimes they'll be male, and every so often you'll end up with a Mandalorian moment where a team of women kicks ass and no one really notices it or thinks too much about it because it's just a natural thing that we see all the time. Even though, yes, you could certainly argue that most people today already feel that way. But anyway, enough about that. Let's get onto this comment from Nick Quintero, who said, I'll give Cara a B+. I really liked seeing how the war with the Empire affected regular soldiers. I thought that her character was interesting, and I genuinely wanted more of her backstory. The little scene with her and the Imperial pilot in Season 2 was a great addition / callback to the OT. And I agree, it's always great to see the war from the perspective of the common soldier, if you will. Too often in Star Wars, we only see things on the larger scale or from the perspective of key players, which is just the nature of Star Wars. And so it's nice to see how this impacted someone in the trenches, which was also one of the great things about the Clone Wars animated series, seeing the war from the perspective of the clone troopers, seeing the war from the perspective of the one actually fighting it. Okay, and next up here we have this comment from Pixar Fan 95 who said, D, when she was first introduced, I didn't mind her presence all that much. I thought it was interesting that there was an ex-rebel shock trooper in the show, much less one from Alderaan. However, due to increased emphasis being put on Grogu in the second season and not on the characters who could actually use it, she was one of the characters who was sidelined. Therefore, her presence in the second season didn't make much sense. It felt like she was there solely for the sake of being there, rather than having an actual reason to be there. She had potential, but in the end, it is all wasted in favor of cute bait. It's a shame that we'll never get a chance to see her be a fully fleshed out character, due to the unjustified firing of Gina Carano. Also here we have this comment from Nolan Evans who said, I always thought she was kinda one-dimensional. She is the typical quote-unquote strong brute almost all stories have. It's not very original. I think she's a good actor. And yeah, the strong brute type is no doubt a classic and overused trope, but Cara Dune wasn't the dumb brute type like they usually are. Plus, as we've kind of been talking about here, I think the plan was again to explore the character much, much further in Rangers of the New Republic. Her time in The Mandalorian was mainly to set the table for that, to introduce us to, and to hopefully make us start to care about this character, and to want to see her get more screen time, which did seem to be the case with most comments. Most people commented about how they really wanted more from the character, and it's a shame we won't be getting it. Alright, and now time for a few final comments here before wrapping this up, starting with this one from Back to the Future Fan 88 who said, I don't think she's the best character to come out of The Mandalorian, but she's still a great character. She feels like she naturally fits into the Star Wars universe, and her backstory of being a rebel who left after the New Republic was formed makes her feel unique. Then there's this one from Dawson Rutledge who said, B, I really enjoyed her character, her backstory, and how she was set up. Her past is definitely something I'd like to see explored a bit. Also, we have this one from Fred1451 Nunn who said, the line, one X-Wing, great, we're saved, is worthy of an A all by itself. Next up here, this one from Friendship is Magic who said, C, I didn't really care for her one way or the other to be honest. When her actress left, I wasn't really thrilled or disappointed. I just thought, meh, whatever. Moving on, we have this one from Harrison Whaley who said, she comes in as a high B for me. She really did well with the screen time she had. I will say that the actress needs some more coaching, but she was on track to be an important new addition to the series until everything went south. I would like to see the alternate dimension where she grows into a fan favorite for everyone and never loses the gig. Then we also have this one from John Kaufman who said, A, setting aside being the proper example of a strong, independent female character, she gives us something new in the live-action Star Wars canon, a rebel who doesn't fit with the New Republic. It's a different perspective entirely from the vast majority of post-Return of the Jedi stories, which even in the Legends/EU generally presented the New Republic as ultimately a force for good even with its flaws. Seeing another perspective presented well and organically fleshes out the universe and gives it much more of that lived-in feeling that the OT strove for. Also here this comment from Lou Hidai who said, solid supporting character, contributes her place to the story and her interactions with Mando were solid. Then this one from Mando Studios who said, A for me. I feel like the Star Wars universe neglects the effects of the destruction of planets on its residents. Leia gets over the death of her family almost immediately. Cara Dune actually gives us a hint of the effects of this tragedy in someone. Also have a comment from Nancy Green who said, Cara was a solid badass character with a quirky sense of humor and a perfect buddy for Mando. I appreciated that she was his equal in combat and a good foil for his seemingly emotionless facade, while she was very outwardly led by her emotions, specifically her hatred for imps and a good backstory. Watching her fight was entertaining, and I love a strong female lead character. This series does female characters well. I already miss her. And finally here, this comment from Yu-Gi-Oh! Dello Stepper, probably saying that wrong. But anyway, they said B. She was a badass character that I enjoyed seeing. but there wasn't much of her. It's too bad she won't make it to Rangers of the New Republic. That would have made her an A, probably. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think of Cara Dune, or tell me what you think of what I or anyone else in the comments here said about Cara Dune, or feel free to nominate and or vote for which character we do next. Either way, do leave that comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.